All right, let's talk about the Hajj. At least once in his or her lifetime, every adult Muslim who is physically and financially able to do so is required to make the sacrifice of time, possessions, status, and normal comforts necessary to make this pilgrimage, becoming a pilgrim totally in God's service. And this is done at a particular time of the year. There's a season that follows Ramadan where everyone does this. Every year, over 2 million believers, representing a tremendous diversity of cultures and languages, travel from all over the world to the holy city of Mecca to form one community living their faith. Now, in addition to the Hajj, there is a devotional ritual that is sometimes referred to as the lesser pilgrimage. It's called the Umrah, which means literally visitation, and it involves visiting holy sites at other times of the year. Many who are on pilgrimage also perform the Umrah rituals before, during, or after the Hajj. However, performing the Umrah does not fulfill the Hajj obligation. They can do them any time, and it's called the lesser pilgrimage because it's not as involved as the Hajj. So, what it's like? Those who participate in the pilgrimage wear very simple garments. Men wear 2 seamless white cloths made of terry cloth, and women wear an outfit that entirely covers the body except the face and hands. They may not cover their face, even if they normally would do so, interestingly. People are permitted to bathe, but not to use perfumes and perfumed soaps. These coverings symbolize purity, as well as the unity and equality of all believers. Men and women worship together. There's no separation of the sexes as there is in prayer services. As the pilgrims approach Mecca, by the way, this is an aerial view of the Grand Mosque. You can see just how enormously immense it is. As pilgrims approach Mecca, they shout, "I am here, O Lord, I am here." When they enter Mecca, their first obligation is to go to the Kaaba, which is located inside the compound of the Grand Mosque. You can see it right here. The crowds of pilgrims move counterclockwise around the Kaaba 7 times, and this circumambulation, like prayer, symbolizes the believer's entry into the divine presence. In the days that follow, pilgrims participate in a variety of ritual actions and ceremonies symbolizing key religious events. They walk and sometimes run a quarter-mile corridor, you see here, of the Grand Mosque 7 times to commemorate Hagar, you'll remember, is the concubine of Abraham, the mother of Ismail. Her frantic search in the desert for water for her son Ishmael. This rite, in contrast to the circumambulation of the Kaaba, which centers on spiritual contact with God, this rite symbolizes humankind's ongoing effort, movement, and struggle through life, expressing a believer's persistence in life's struggle for survival. The quarter mile was supposed to be between the hills of Safa and Marwa. It was not always. It used to be outside. Now it's this wonderfully contained corridor with ceiling fans. The pilgrims drink water from the well called Zamzam, Z-A-M-Z-A-M. It means literally bubbling, which is located within the Grand Mosque also, where Muslims believe God provided water for Hagar and Ismail. They assemble for a day at Arafat, a vast empty plain, in commemoration of the final pilgrimage of Muhammad, who delivered his final sermon to his people from the Mount of Mercy, a hill in the middle of the plain. That's what we see here. They also symbolically reject the devil, the source of all evil, by throwing stones at 3 pillars that stand at the site where Satan met Abraham and Ismail and tempted them to disobey God when Abraham was preparing to sacrifice his son in obedience to God's command. Recall that in the Islamic tradition, it is not Isaac that Abraham is commanded to sacrifice, but Ishmael, or Ismail in Arabic. Now, that's all I want to say for now about the Hajj. We'll talk about it again when we talk about religious experience, because it is such a key religious experience. But I want to talk about some other Islamic rituals. Some Muslims visit the tombs of saints in various shrines as a form of pilgrimage. This is especially true of various Shia sects, though it's not limited to them. Shia Sunnis have an imam with a capital I, a sort of pope, and certainly they are sources of pilgrimage for veneration. It's also very much a part of the Sufi practice. Sufi Islam, you'll recall, is mystical Islam, and some Sufi masters are very venerated as well. Now, if you're thinking, wow, that sounds kind of like a violation of Tawhid, yeah, Wahhabism, in fact, forbids this as shirk, or violation of Tawhid. Wahhabism, by the way, is a religious system founded by Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab in the late in the 18th century. It's a fundamentalist reaction against modernity, sort of a doubling down on core beliefs. There is fundamentalist Judaism and fundamentalist Christianity. You may be more familiar with, and so as a result, Sufism is somewhat diminished in modernity and now, but it was once huge. Dhikr, a form of devotion associated chiefly with Sufism, in which is another rite in which the worshippers absorbed in the rhythmic repetition of the name of God, or His attributes, the 99 names of God. Here is a short video.
When school isn't a place you have to be,
that will play after the ad.
Remote learning can be as remote as you want.
Okay, you can see how powerful that might be. Sufi dance, such as whirling dervishes, which we may have talked about, and we'll see some of that later, would be another example of these sorts of rituals. All of these are forms of ecstatic worship, a mystical and loving relationship with the divine. This is like, reminds me of Hasidic men dancing ecstatically together, of course, with no women present, or rather ecstatic forms of Christianity, like Pentecostalism, for example. And that, I believe, is all I want to say about rituals for now.